lot of these offenses are being taught now is let's make it really easy on the quarterback pre-snap so he can just play ball. And I do think that's the wrong direction.
Yeah, that kind of gets me in a state of rage. We're underestimating.
Let's get in trips and just snap it.
Yeah, what these quarterbacks can do.
Welcome to another episode of Fitz and Whit. I'm Fitz, and the supersized human with a Chucky doll and that look just so smug, all the self-satisfaction, that is Whit.
You know what, Fitz? Winners win, man. You know what I'm saying? So just never mess with a winning streak. 3 in a row, 3 coaches in a row. Yeah, I'm pretty excited.
I'm so tired of this. Andrew Whitworth, the guest whisperer.
On, baby.
He does it again. Can I just say, in my own defense, I've been putting text messages out there. I've got a couple GMs. Today wasn't the day for the GMs. It just wasn't the day. There's a lot going on. I didn't learn that till after I text, but I've been trying. And I may have some good news coming up at the end of the podcast today about who our guest will be next week, but I'm going to leave you hanging for a while there. I just feel like at this point with the guest thing, it's like a quarterback pressing too hard in the fourth quarter. I'm just trying to do too much. I was known sometimes to do that in my career. I'm doing it right now for the podcast. Sometimes you have to let the game come to you. Right now, I'm going to try to let the guest come to me, even though it's not working.
First to get McVay, then KOC, and now today's guest, a man on a fascinating NFL journey, a man perfect for today's free agency preview, because I know he's been through some. Jon Gruden, baby.
Yeah, Gruden, NFL coach for 15 years, so he's been a veteran of 15 periods of free agency. And Whit, you said the magic words, a fascinating NFL journey.
That's for sure.
His journey has been just that. He's been a hero. He's been a villain. He's been a savior. He's been a scapegoat, but he's also been a champion, and no one can take that away from him. We've got lots to unpack. I was an NFL free agent at least 7 times by my count, although it got hard by the end to figure out when I was actually a free agent, when I wasn't. There's a lot to unpack there. I've got a range of experience as an NFL player, but so do you. And your journey was certainly a little bit different than mine, both because, and I'm not being facetious here or self-deprecating, but the way, you know, how you were a highly sought after free agent when you made it to the free agency. And for me, it was like, okay, which team is he going to this year? Is he a backup? Is he a bridge starter? But for you only played for 2 teams in 16 years. And that means you only had to move once in your career, and that was from Cincy to LA in 2017 during free agency. That was 8 years ago. I still remember when we first started with TNF, you going back to Cincinnati, yep. And you had all kinds of feels. You had all kinds of feels having to go back into that stadium.
I did.
So you go 11 years in Cincinnati, 3 All-Pros, 3 Pro Bowl seasons there. 5 straight playoff appearances. You're playing your best football, and then the hammer blow. Like, were you pissed off they let you go? Did they let you go? Did you just have a better opportunity? Let's hear about how the ending in Cincinnati went for you.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, 11 years in one place, obviously, it's going to mean a lot to you. So, yeah, is there still feelings about that? Heck, yeah, because, I mean, Melissa and I obviously got married while I was playing in Cincinnati. We had all 4 of our kids while we were playing in Cincinnati. So, and obviously we're, really committed to being a huge part of that community in general. So we had a lot of great memories on the way out. But yeah, I mean, when you talk about that journey, Fitz, part of it is in those 11 years, if you remember when you and I got in the league, these 3-year, you can't sign before your 3rd year stuff didn't exist. You could re-sign at any point. So I was a 2nd-round pick who, after my 2nd year being in Cincinnati, our left tackle Levi Jones had been getting hurt a couple years in a row, and they decided they wanted me to be the future there. So they offered me a contract that I really couldn't turn down because at that time the league minimum was $285, I think, at that time. Your rookie year, much different than the almost $1 million now.
It was $230 my year in 2005.
I mean, you think about how much it's changed. I mean, it's wild from when we started in the league. So, you'd get these offers early. And that was Cincinnati's game, offer you really early. And so I actually ended up having 3 contracts in my first 5 years in Cincinnati. I got an extension after my 2nd season, and I got another extension in my 5th season as I was on the verge of making a Pro Bowl as a left tackle there. So it was one of those things that I truly was never even close to free agency until my 10th year in the league. And so that's it, which is wild to say, but I basically in my first 4 or 5 years in the league had 10 years worth of contracts already. And so I was there for a really long time, no matter what. And you play well. And then, you've been to Cincinnati and you know how they do things. It's a tough place to ever say, all right, it's not somewhere you're going to see the Josh Allen deal really early. We're going to offer you a ton of money to go ahead and take care of a great player, or a Saquon Barkley deal where really early we're going to offer you a ton of money because of how you've played for us to make you really happy. It's a place where you're going to have to sit down and have a knockdown drag out of how it's going to be structured and everything else. So, the quick version is you actually can't start.
Before you start talking, I need to put a quick disclaimer out there. You start talking about money and you start talking about tens of millions of dollars, and it truly is monopoly money. So I want to put the disclaimer out there that we're not assholes and we're not discounting like how lucky we were, how much money we made. It's just the world that we lived in. And you talk in terms of 8 and 10 and 12 and 20, and we're talking millions of dollars. And we're not trying to sound like assholes. It's just, that's the world that we got to live in for 16, 17 years. And it is insane and it makes no sense. And it was always difficult to have conversations even with your parents, because this is life-changing money that no generation before you had ever seen. But it's just the world we live in where you're battling your worth. And for me, it was why I always had an agent. So let's dig into now. You're 10 years into your career, and this is the first time that you have a chance to hit free agency.
Yeah. And, I have a chance. I go in, I know it's my last year on my contract going into the 2015 season. And so as the season ends, I had a great season. I had just gone an entire year without giving up a sack, which is very rare to do at the left tackle position. And
it's mainly on the quarterback too, but go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. The scrambler that Andy Dalton was. So I get in there. I'm like, you know what? I'd always had a relationship, and I've always said this to this day. Me and Mike Brown had a great relationship in the sense of we could always sit down and have tough conversations and walk away from it, and there'd be a mutual respect there. And so I'm like, you know what? Katie and Troy Blackburn do the contracts at this time. I'm going to go up, tell them, where I'm at with, my career and what my future vision is. I want to have a vision for who I am. You know how I am, Fitz. I mean, I love to plan way ahead of time and work towards something. And that's what I want to do. And so I went into her office and just said, hey, listen, I plan to play football a whole lot longer than next year, which I have a contract for. And so I would love to talk this offseason about an extension to extend my time here. And let's see if there's some way we could find a resolution there, because I don't want to have to go into a year where, I'm a free agent and everything else. Let's go ahead and handle it now. Well, there was basically zero communication over that. So, after 3 months have gone by, you pretty much know the answer is probably no. So I, sit there, I actually go to the Kentucky Derby, Fitz, and I'm sitting I get an invite to go to the Derby at Windstar Farms, unbelievable horse farm. And they have a lot of horses every year in the Derby and every other race. So I'm sitting at this party with a bunch of friends from Louisiana, and the draft's on the TV. And the first night they go first round, left tackle, Cedric Aboyhe out of Texas A&M. And it's like, you know what? Not happy about it that they didn't tell me they were going to draft a first rounder. He was injured, so I knew that kind of meant he wasn't playing that year, but I knew it also meant that probably means next year
There's
I'm
a
out of here.
timetable. Yeah.
Yeah, I know the timetable. We've been in the league. And then the next day I'm at I'm there, and sure enough, in the second round, they draft another left tackle.
Message sent.
Message is clear. So what I would say real quick to skip past that time, obviously not happy. The next week I have a public deal that goes, I do an interview with, you know this, Fitz. Sometimes we're angry and the cameras or the microphones get in front of you at the right moment.
Yeah. I
do an interview in their locker room and I let them have it, just from like a treatment standpoint, being who I had been for that community, for that team, a captain almost my entire career. The lack of communication and the way that went down, I thought was just the ultimate level of disrespect. It wasn't about whether you did it. You could do it and that's fine, but let's at least have a respect level to tell me it's happening. And I'll never forget, Hugh Jackson was the only coach that called me during that moment and said, where are you? Let me come find you. And he actually came and had dinner with me that night. And so it was cool to see his love and respect, like for me, after that interview and just kind of like, hey man, let me make sure you're good, because I'm the OC and I know it matters that my left tackle's happy, and I want to make sure you're good this weekend through all this draft stuff. And so fast forward to the next year, I play great, have a good 2016. I'm obviously not a young cat, Fitz. I'm still 34, turning 35. So I get through the season, have another good year, and I'll never forget during that time, during the season, it's like week 8 of the season, we're 8-0, and I write a letter to Mike Brown, and I said, hey, you know what? I've done a lot of things here. Feel like I've, done enough to deserve the opportunity to be extended, and you don't want to do that, and I don't feel like it's right. So I feel like I'm at a place where I've got to decide if I want to continue playing, or search for a better option to how we end this. And he called me into his office. We had a really tough talk where he basically told me that the future of the team was in the hands of these young guys they'd picked. They thought I was one of the greatest leaders he'd ever been around, but you know what? This is business and life, and we don't always get all the outcomes we want, but that doesn't change how he feels about me. And so you walk out of there disappointed, but with a lot of respect, Fitz, for somebody that just was honest with you. And so, he ends up giving me a 1-year extension. At that time, he literally puts it on the table and says, you can have a 1-year extension if you'll sign this right now. This is week 8 of the season. They'd never done this before. So we get to free agency the next year. And you can guess, Fitz, when Troy had called me and said, hey, we know we've always sat down with you to do your deals. You've had a great year. We don't think we want to go ahead with the 2 young kids. We'd love you to come back. I happily sent him Pat Dye's cell phone number and said, you guys can talk to Pat Dye from here on. Because if you didn't want to talk a year ago, we're not going to talk now.
Yeah.
And so that's really how that went. And then free agency comes, and man, it was really tough because I can remember sitting at Jeff Ruby's Steakhouse, the precinct in Cincinnati, with my entire family and the kids and everything. And we had a little private dinner room just to kind of sit and get the offers. And there's a lot of teams, a lot of interest, and a lot went into it because there was, Mike Zimmer was a head coach at that time, a couple other guys that I'd been with in Cincinnati. So there's a lot of emotions of what do you do? And it felt like the worst thing in the world to leave emotionally. And I sat in that room and I just hated all of it. And I was like, you know what? I can't do it. I'll go back to Cincinnati for less. Like, just forget it. Like, I'm staying. And Melissa looked at me and was like, this is going to be you, miserable, not believing in yourself and not realizing that you're worthy of being treated a certain way. You can't do that. And I go, well, then what do you want me to do? And she goes, well, text Pat and tell him, send out a contract to all the teams that are interested that you think everybody would turn down, and just see what team at least responds. And that'll tell us if there's somebody who's really serious about you being a part of the organization at your age. And sure enough, the Los Angeles Rams were the only team that said, done.
Wow.
And we'll take it. And I was like, wait, what? He texted me like, the Rams want you. And I was like, hold on.
What was it? I mean, it's all public.
3 years, $36 million, I believe. It was like $15 million to sign, which was the biggest deal ever for a tackle that was 35 years old, I can assure you, in NFL history. And look, the test of time, Fitz, you know this, is as we got in the league to now, you brought it up about the money. Like, I remember the old heads bitching about what guys were making as they retired, and I'm bitching now about what guys are making. I'm looking at these free agency signings.
It's been 3 or 4 years, and it's like,
I want to go back right now. And the part that people may not realize, like, oh, you just went for the money. Melissa and I actually did a destination wedding. Crazy enough, we chose Los Angeles. And that was where we got married way back in the early 2000s. And for us, it was like, wow, this is serendipitous. Like, we're all of a sudden going to go back to LA.
No, I don't buy that bullshit.
It was. And there's another part,
money.
Actually. That was probably 2. You know what one really was, Fitz? I was a massive Entourage fan. And when they sent the contract, I was like,
there we go.
I could go be Vince? You mean I could be Vince? This is my moment to be Vince, not Johnny. I could be Vince. Yeah. Johnny would be in Cincinnati. Vince would take the LA deal. And so that was my chance to go be Vince and be an Entourage.
I love that. I love that.
We did it.
The stress that's involved, it always ends up being, for the most part, it ends up being a great outcome. But it's like the stress involved that you go through, that you put your relationship with your teammates through, your wife, your family. It's tough times, man. Even though you're sitting there talking about all that money, it's like this one decision is going to affect so many things. And if you make the wrong decision, then it affects things in a negative way. But you look at your life now and that decision in that moment. First of all, I think Melissa deserves some commission. I don't know if she got any commission on that deal or not.
She deserves commission on a lot of things.
But how awesome is that for her to be able to see that? And even for you, for her to be able to say, like, I want somebody that breathes confidence into you, that values you for who you are and what's going to make you better. I think that's super cool. You obviously went to 2 Super Bowls in LA. You won a Super Bowl. I went to Harvard. But the other thing that I wanted to just touch on briefly with you, that Thursday night football game, and it ended up being the game that Tua got hurt, but Miami was playing against Cincy, and that was the first time I believe you had been back in the building, right?
It was.
And so like the raw emotion of that, and even after all those years, like what you felt like walking back into that stadium.
Yeah, it was special to be there because of how much it meant to me and my family, Fitz. But like the extension part of that story of being there is that, so I go to LA, we take the older 3 kids, Catherine stays at home. We get on a flight from Cincinnati to LA. And I always joke, I mess with Mr. Kroenke and Josh and them all the time. Like, you hear these great free agency stories, Fitz, where these guys get on a plane. They just flew in on the Falcons plane, or they just flew in on Jerry's plane. Like, we got the last flight out of Cincinnati, the back row of the airplane. We were in the dead last row of the airplane. It was a winter storm, and we had to connect through Salt Lake City. I'm sitting in the back of this plane. It was one of those where the flight attendants can't even get up. I'm bouncing around all over the place. I'm miserable. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Why did I agree to this contract? I'm pissed at Cincinnati. And all of a sudden I look at Melissa and I say, babe, we are going to the LA and we are going to change the culture of this place, but we will never have a chance to win a Super Bowl. We will never have a chance to win. You got to realize how bad they've been. But what we might do is change this place enough to where these guys love what they do, instill confidence in who they are and the culture they have, and they may be successful later. And she shares that story with Sean after our first season when we lost our playoff game, and win the division. And he has never let me live it down now. And then now, especially, we later go on to a Super Bowl and lose one and now win one. He loves that story because that's really what I thought. I thought I'd never play in SoFi Stadium, and I thought I'd never get a chance to see them actually win. But I thought I'd be a part of what they did. And so we go to LA. I signed the contract. There's an epic picture of me signing with all 3 kids hanging onto my arms. And Fitz, it was so raw, the emotion, I couldn't go back. So we went to dinner that night, and Melissa and I were having dinner, and she's like, are you okay? And I was like, I don't think I can go back to Cincinnati. And that's why I say she deserves all the credit in the world for just the woman she is. And all of us, no matter what we achieve, man, that significant other is just as much a part of all those journeys as anybody. And she's been through some dark days with me and some good days. But in that moment, she was a superhero. And she said, you know what? I know how you're driven. You just want to go to work. She goes, you stay here. Start training, because I know that's the only thing you're thinking about right now. I'm going to take the kids. I'm going to cancel your ticket. I'm going to fly back. I got it. And we flew her parents up there. She moved us out of our house for 11 years, sold the house, shipped everything to me. My only job was to find a house we could rent in LA. That I did. And she moved all the kids out there in a month. In 1 month, she moved our house out there, the kids out there, got them out of school, got them in schools. It was amazing. And I never went back to Cincinnati, Ohio until that game. So to be there for that moment, it was a big emotional moment to finally be back, be okay with the feelings, and just, a place that I obviously love. And that's why I care. That's why I'm emotional about it. I love it. And it made a massive impact on my life. And it's exactly why when I won Walter Payton Man of the Year, my only story was about Derek Barnes, because that guy in Cincinnati, Ohio in 2006 and 2007, I was who I am today because of what I went through there. And so it's still a place I love and still means a lot to me. And
Derek Barnes just signed an extension, right? Was it Detroit?
He did. And, yesterday was the anniversary of me signing with the Rams. The Rams posted that. Then on Friday, he signs an extension. Really cool moment.
That's awesome.
I think that's the tough part, that when you talk about these situations, Fitz, and you've been through them too, is we see all the wins, like, oh man, this guy signed this huge deal. And we talk about money, and we talk about, oh man, he's going to live in LA, he's going to make this much money. He's going to live in Florida and make this much money. But man, we're all still human beings. I don't care what a dollar amount is. You're still a human. You still have feelings. You still get affected by things. And I think these kind of situations to me are much deeper than sometimes we realize as fans, probably because now you and I are just basically fans of the league. Man, we're excited that Josh Allen got a deal. But then also, man, there's this deep part of what he means to that entire city and organization that it's like, man, how cool is that they're committing to him in this way? And I would ask you that, man. Let's think about this. Like, your NFL journey, right? You get in the year before me, so you actually played 17 years?
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
So you started for 9 different NFL teams.
Yep.
You're the only man in NFL history to throw a TD to 8 different NFL teams, and maybe an interception as well. I don't know. We'd have to look at the stats.
Eight TDs, eight TDs for 8, or TDs for 8 different teams, and an interception for 8.
And an
teams,
interception. Well, look at you, man.
Hey, no big deal.
Like, level it out. I like that. But hey, I looked it up. Actually, I lie. Katie did it. You know that.
Yeah.
But
Thanks,
I
Katie.
did want to know how long your NFL journey actually was. And I'm talking like linear miles, not your career years.
Okay.
Mine was just under 1,900 miles if you do Cincy to LA. Do you have any idea what yours was?
I mean, there's some years there where I was pretty East Coasty.
Okay.
Houston, Tennessee. I would say, what was yours?
1,900.
1,900, which is a pretty far. I'm going to put mine at, let's say 10,000.
Okay. The answer is the 9-team, 17-season Fitzmagical carpet ride, we will call it that, from St. Louis to Cincinnati to Buffalo to Tennessee, then to Houston, New York, then to Tampa, Miami, and D.C. You had a hot cup of coffee in D.C. Stretches a grand total of 6,500 miles. That's the difference between L.A. and New Zealand. Fitz.
Wow. Okay.
How about
So I was
that?
a little bit off, but that's a lot of travel.
That's a lot of travel. My question with you would be 9 different teams, all different kind of situations you walked into. Were these all you had a choice? Like, these are, you know what, they're specific. There's every one of these I'm kind of choosing between a certain team, or were some of these like, this is the one team that's kind of giving me an opportunity?
Dude, it was a crazy journey with a lot of different twists and turns. I got traded a couple times. So I got traded from St. Louis to Cincinnati.
Okay.
And that one was even
that
weird. Like, that one, it was after cut day. They had made the 53-man roster. I was going in to the first meeting with Scott Linehan, to the team meeting. I get pulled up into his office, and they say, you've been traded to Cincinnati. And that one was bad because I called Liza, and I was in the parking lot and said, hey, I just got, I can believe this, I just got traded. And the GM, I bump into the GM in the parking lot. And I said, I got to go. And I hang up on Liza, and I didn't tell her where I got traded to. So the next 5 minutes for her, she's like, oh my God, like, where are we going? We had Brady was 6 months old, like, to the day. So we're just trying to figure out life in general at that point. And I get traded, and it's the first week of the football season. So I have to go learn a new offense, do all those things. And then she's left with a 6-month-old to figure out how to move everything to Cincinnati. And that was an absolute mess. But like you said, behind every man, like the significant other, man, I wouldn't have been able to do any of it without Liza. And every year we just kept adding kids, and making it more and more difficult to pick up and move. But Buffalo was the first time. That was my first time I got to sign somewhere as a free agent. And at that point, I think I signed 3 for $8.5 million. Like, my life was made. Like, that was it. That was the biggest turning point for me in terms of, like, this is generational wealth. Like, I'll never need another dime. And then as you start playing, you're like, well, wait a minute. It'd be nice to make a little bit more money. So for me, though, I get cut in Buffalo. I'm just trying to find a job at that point. So a couple times for me, it was trying to find a job. And you take the going rate for a backup back then was, for a guy that was experienced, it had some starts, was like 1 for $3 million. So signed in Tennessee, got cut after a year, signed in Houston. And at that point in my career, after I had signed with Houston, everywhere that I signed, I wanted a starting job. And so that limited.
I was going to say, like, how many of these are like, this is probably a 1-year stop? Like,
so a lot of times for me, by the end, it was I'm going to be the bridge starter, which means exactly like
Right.
what happened in Miami, which was I'm going to go here. I want to be the starter. They're obviously going to draft somebody. So the 1 year they draft Tua, and then I know that my time is limited there, but I try to make as big of an impact as I possibly can in the year or the 2 years that I'm there.
right.
And so that was just, it was always interesting. I always love telling the story to guys that, are constantly moving around and you start losing. You go into every situation jaded, essentially.
Yep.
And my wife, Liza, it was like every situation was an adventure. So, when we went from the Jets, which ended very poorly, to me not wanting to play football again, to going to Tampa, it was like, oh my God, we are close to Disney. We're going to live on the water. We're going to enjoy this time while we're here. Never thinking, well, I'm signing here. It's going to be for a year and then we'll move somewhere else and then we'll move somewhere else. Everywhere we went was an adventure. My time in DC was unbelievable because we took advantage of it. We enjoyed just being a family together in another part of the country. And to be honest, the last 3 years of being settled in a place in Arizona, it's like, okay, well, when are we going to move now? Like looking forward to it, and it's not there anymore. But the two stories I'll tell about my free agency, one was, and so I got traded to New York from Houston. But after my first year there, so I got traded. They were 4-12 the year before I got there. Rex Ryan gets fired. I get traded there. Todd Bowles is the coach. I'm just a backup. I got traded for like a bag of old rained on footballs and a 10% off coupon at Applebee's. And Chan Gailey was the coach there. Geno Smith was the starter. That was the year Geno fractured his jaw. We end up going 10-6. I'm a free agent. Now, the problem with being a free agent in the situation I was in, the Jets needed me because I had just had a good season for them and they wanted to run it back. And I needed the Jets because nobody was going to sign me to a contract to be their starter for over $10 million a year. And so this contract just dragged on and dragged on and dragged on. And I became really hardened by this experience because it was no money at first. And then they offered me 3 years. But instead of, I just wanted a 1 year, $12 million deal. Right. They offered me $12 million with backup money tied on to the last 2 years. And it's like, look, well, you guys don't see me as a starter for more than a year, so let's just make it a year. And then there were de-escalator clauses where it was just like my agent was such a slap in the face. If you don't win the Super Bowl, we're going to take $1.5 million off your contract. If you don't win the league MVP, we're taking that. It's like, all right, that's not something that exists. So you go through these things. And the thing I learned doing that, it's like there were things that the Jets saw that were weaknesses in me, and not as a player, but in a negotiation. The weaknesses were that I love football. Yep. The weaknesses were that I loved the relationships I had with my teammates and coaches. And then it was the weakness of like, I love my wife and kids and wanted stability for them. Yep. So in this negotiation, this knockdown drag out that lasted all off season, you just get so bitter in thinking about all these things they're trying to use against you when it's supposed to be a harmonious relationship. And, I just got so tired of it by the end. So what happened with that one, I wanted 1 year for $12 million the whole time. My agent back and forth all off season. And at that point I just say, don't tell me anything unless there's a legit contract offer you want me to, look into or see. So with 7 hours left before the first meeting of training camp, they offered me, guess what, Whit? 1 year, $12 million. And it was just like this whole thing could have been avoided months ago. It was so annoying, but you just get jaded by these experiences. And that's why I actually really enjoy when guys reach out to me now and talk about their current contract situations when they're in negotiations. And I think the things that you realize is it never really is personal. And then the power of no. It's so wonderful to have multiple options. And if you have multiple options, you hold all the cards, baby. And they try to prey into your insecurities, and it gets tough, man. I mean, it gets to be not enjoyable. The only other one I'll talk about quickly is when I left Tampa, I had two options, one to go be the backup for Deshaun Watson in Houston and one to go play in Miami to be the starter. Now, it was the exact same money. And my agent is looking at me, Jimmy Sexton's looking at me going, just go back up. Just go back up to Sean Watson. This is great. Get a couple more years. And all I'm thinking in my dumb mind is, I want to play. Like, the only reason I'm still at this is because I love being on the field and competing, and I don't care. And Jimmy's just like, look, the Dolphins are going to be horrible. Like, they're going to be so awful this year. They end up getting rid of all the, Laramie Tunsil gets traded, Minka Fitzpatrick, they get rid of everybody. It's a fire sale. And when I tell you those 2 years, especially the year and a half where I started and then started before Tua played, like, those were two of the most rewarding years of my life, being in that and being able to play. And you just, there's different things that you weigh. And as I got older, the biggest factor for me was I want to play. I don't want to sit and back up, because at that point, do what you
love what you do.
That's it, man. And so I ended up having a great time in Miami, and it worked out awesome. And look, we were never going to win a Super Bowl. We were probably never going to go to the playoffs, but the way that I was able to help that franchise rise, and the way that I was able to help teach and show Tua some things as he's continued to go on his career and play great, those are things that I hang my hat on and love. And, the free agency journey for me was always a little bit different than yours, because it wasn't like 10 teams fighting over me. It was like, I just need to find a damn job, and I need to find somewhere where they'll at least allow me into a competition to be the starting quarterback, because that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I don't take for granted, man. Like, the thing for me that was interesting since he's being 10 years under contract and never having to think about free agency.
Crazy.
It put me in a world where I'm just trying to make the team every year just to get my money. And that was my mentality, who I am really as a person. Every day I like to plan out everything. And so that was real simple. That 1 year, or really 2 years, of just it being in the air, I can imagine when you say hardened, that I think of that because I go, man, it opened my eyes to guys who haven't lived in that world and have lived in this world where it's like, no, I'm trying to play well. I'm hoping other teams are watching, or I'm hoping this situation earns me the opportunity to have multiple options next year. And you are really living in that emotion, because that just those 2 years. And I know obviously it was because you were there for so long a little bit, but really just the not knowing drove me crazy. And I can't imagine the stress I put on my wife and my family, because every little game moment that you didn't do well in, or you did, or whatever, just your emotions were all over the place, because it's dictating your mood a lot on what you think you can provide. Because for me, it was always like, I want my kids and my wife to get the greatest experience ever. So like, when I fail, I'm failing them. And so it's like, that's how I was mentally wound. And just those 2 years were terrible. I can't imagine going through it that many times, just how jaded it would make you to the whole business.
And we also had to compartmentalize things, right? So crazy enough, like Liza never saw a house that we purchased like in a different city before I actually bought it. And then the other thing that it just made it easier. And you realize this when you move a lot. The first year from St. Louis to Cincy, it's like we got a U-Haul. Then from Cincy to Buffalo, we got a U-Haul and we packed it. And after that, it was like, look, I am going to take this off of you. Like, we're hiring movers and I don't care how much it costs. And they're going to pack the whole kitchen and they're going to do everything. So it's like, the movers then don't care. So it's like, they'll pack everything in the house. I mean, there were times where we were unpacking and there's dirty diapers sitting in, like, it's like, why did you wrap this dirty diaper up? But it's okay, because they took everything off of us to be able to take a whole household and transfer it somewhere else. And that part of it was crazy. The only other Buffalo free agency story that came to mind. So I'm leaving Cincinnati, going to Buffalo, and I wasn't a big, hey, let me take a trip out there and see what the facilities are like. I didn't care. Like, I really didn't care. But I did go out to Buffalo to sign. Yeah. I went out to Buffalo to sign. And Alex Van Pelt, an absolute legend. He was on the Buffalo staff at that time. He was Jim Kelly's backup in Buffalo for a long time. We go to the Big Tree Inn, which I think I took you either in or around the Big Tree, right by the stadium there. And we sit down and he orders chicken wings and he orders some beers and shots of something. And I'm just like, is this a test? Like, thinking in my mind, like, is he testing to see
how committed I am?
And he's hammering wings. So I start hammering wings and we get a couple beers deep and a couple shots
I've seen
deep.
You do that.
And I'm like, oh my, okay, this is the place for me. The fact that like this isn't maybe it was a test in the other way. Like, is this guy a dude?
Yeah, you're one of our guys.
I felt like that was my place. And I owe a lot of it to Alex Van Pelt and that first meal that we had at the Big Tree. because it felt like home very early on.
I love that. Yeah, man. Free agency is a wild time. And I think, you really have to realize there's so many other emotions involved that get into these things. And I can't wait to ask Jon Gruden a couple of those questions as well.
You're going to see some monster deals, as we already have. And the thing that's been happening that's been nice to see, deals are getting shorter, but that guaranteed money is going through the roof. That's been a huge change, I would say, in the last few years.
I've been working out hard, Fitz.
I don't know. I think you would be on a game-by-game salary. I don't know if they give you a whole year right now. But a lot of pressure on these teams, though. And I can't wait. The perspective that Gruden has, not just media member, head coach, couple different franchises, the Raiders a couple times with a couple Davises. But he's so into the game and so much still loves grinding over film.
I don't know if anybody watches more tape than that dude.
It's insane, but can't wait to talk to him today.
Time to face the facts, Fitz. We don't bounce back like we used to, at least not after a night of drinking. Up until recently, I just figured I had to choose between having a great night or having a great next day. But not anymore. We can have a great night and have a great day after, thanks to pre-alcohol.
Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by a PhD scientist to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Prebiotic produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember, to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow.
Every time you have pre-alcohol before drinks, you will notice a difference the next day. Even after a night out, there's no need to cancel those plans with the family or your tea time, and even your podcast record fit. So this March Madness, don't let anything sideline your celebrations. Grab pre-alcohol before you go out and be ready to cheer on your team all day or all night long.
Go to zbiotics.com/FitzandWhit to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use promo code FitzandWhit at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money back guaranteed. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/FitzandWhit and use this code FitzandWhit at checkout for 15% off. All right. With that, let's bring in today's special guest, a veteran of 7 NFL franchises. He coached for the 49ers and the Packers and the Eagles, consulted for the Saints. The autumn winds blew this man first to the Oakland Raiders and then to the Las Vegas Raiders. He won his Super Bowl ring with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, an NFL franchise that so coveted his leadership they traded 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a stack of racks to get him. He's known in some circles as Chucky, but he'll forever be known as a Super Bowl champion. And maybe most impressive of all, this man understands the mystical ways of playing quarterback in the NFL. Please give a Fitz and Whit welcome to Coach Jon Gruden. How we doing, Coach?
Hey, thank you for that great intro. So nice of you, Fitz. It's an honor to be with you guys. I love you guys. You guys look like you're well groomed here today.
Well, I got some mean comments online, and now that you're kind of getting into this, Barstool online world, they were so all over me about my beard last week and how I looked homeless that I had my daughter with a curling iron this morning, just kind of curling the bottom of it. Have you ever rocked a beard before, Coach?
I don't have that. I guess I don't have those manly qualities. I can't even barely grow a whisker on my arm. I don't have very much hair, so I'm going to have to do without the beard, guys.
Fitz, you look like you got a little gel in that hair as well.
I just threw some water in it, Whit. Just threw some water in it, yeah.
I understand. Coach, man, we're excited to have you, brother. I know reaching out to you last week, what a freaking honor, man. I came into the league when you were still in Tampa, and man, always such a fan when I was in college and then throughout my time in the NFL. So it's a freaking blast for us to have you. But hey, we got to talk about it, Coach. Today is the beginning of what they say is the tampering window in free agency. We all know there's been some conversations before today. We're not that naive, but let's talk about inside those buildings. in these days like this, obviously you got some control whatsoever of a little bit of the guys you've had you can talk to, but outside of it, we're throwing numbers around. We're hoping and praying a guy wants to come here. What were those days like from a stress standpoint and how you get into free agency?
Yeah, it's agonizing, as you know, especially for a coach. I can only imagine how it was for you guys, not knowing where you're going to be, not knowing who you're going to be playing for, where you're going to live, but a lot of uncertainty. But that's what the combine really is for a lot of head coaches and GMs. All the agents show up in Indianapolis. And you don't think we're just sitting in our room at night. We're out there hustling these agents, trying to see if we can get in on some of these players. And you want to protect some of your own players. So you got to meet with your own team, your own players, agents, and you got to meet with some prospective agents, some guys you'd like to get in front of and jump out of the gate with.
Hey, Coach, weirdly, speaking on that, I don't know why. Some reason, the only time I ever attended the Combine, it was the 1 year I was a free agent. I don't really understand how that works, but for some reason I ended up at the Combine and a bunch of conversations. It was a weird year just to show up all of a sudden like that.
That's before the tampering period, isn't it, Whit? What's going on there?
Oh, no. Just running into people, accidental, oh, boom. Oh, hey, you know what? You'll have to do left tackle. How you doing?
What about, so you're first time head coach with the Raiders and dealing with Al Davis. Do you have any good button head stories with Al Davis back in the day? Maybe players that you wanted that he didn't or vice versa?
Well, let me tell you, Fitz, I got a lot of stories. Just trust me on this one, Butch. I've done it a long time. But yeah, I had a lot of respect for Al Davis. He put every dime, every second, every bit of energy he had into the Raider franchise. And a lot of us were there to give him some input, but ultimately he was going to make the decision. He had a real vision for the kind of players he wanted. Whit, he liked you. He liked Raider bodies, he called them. He wanted big guys, bigger than the other guys, so we could kick the shit out of you. That's what he wanted. And he wanted speed. He wanted guys that could fly. We had silver medalists. We had freaking Olympic trial athletes. We always had big guys and fast guys. And it started right there. And it held through the draft and into free agency. But Al Davis was not afraid to pull the trigger. We signed Jerry Rice, Andre Rison. He didn't care who they were. If they were a great player and they were available, Al Davis would sell a percentage of the team just to get some money to get the guy. And I loved every second of it because he was a football guy and he'd do anything he could to win.
Speaking of selling percentages of teams, I think the Cincinnati Bengals are in that situation right now. Huh? I mean, when you want to get T. Higgins and Jamar Chase back in the building, you might have to sell a percentage of the team to get those two guys under contract, it looks like, in Cincinnati. When you talk about those situations, Coach, when you really got these players that are dynamic, and it's like, hey, how do I keep this guy in our building? Obviously, some guys got to go. There's going to be feelings hurt. But how do you try to handle these situations when it's guys that you know you want, but sometimes contractually it's just not going to be possible to keep everybody?
It's impossible. It's hard. I remember when I got traded to the Buccaneers, I went into a meeting and Rich McKay said, well, do you want Warwick Dunn or do you want Simeon Rice? And I said, well, the last coach got them both. I'd like to have both of them. He says, well, obviously you don't understand our salary cap. And that really pissed me off. Some things are out of the coach's control. I remember when I went back to the Raiders, we had a pretty good player named Khalil Mack who was a free agent. He wouldn't even return my calls.
I think
we offered him $50 million. He ended up getting $100 million from the Bears. But a lot of these things are very emotional, very hard. You want the best players, but there is an economic part of this, and there is a budget that you have to be considerate of because you got to pay a lot of players. And in the Bengals case, what do you do? I'm seeing Trey Hendrickson is asking for a trade. You're not a very good defense. You better, take care of your team and not worry about loading up on one specific position. But I do believe if you have a blue chip player in his prime, you should never let those guys out of your building somehow.
The crazy trend that seems to have happened the last few years, the Kansas City and Tyreek, they get rid of Tyreek and then all of a sudden find themselves back in the Super Bowl and winning. And it seems like it doesn't bother them because they kind of shift the way that they play a little bit. Buffalo does the same thing with Diggs this last year. The way that the game has changed, even for me, like the last 10 years, the way that offensive has changed, the efficiency, maybe the trickle up effect from college and some of these screens and quick game. From your first stint as the Raiders coach to your second stint as the Raiders coach, how different were those trends, and how different maybe is it easier to play quarterback now than it was on first and second down, maybe say 10, 15 years ago?
Well, it's a lot easier to complete a bubble screen or a quick screen than it is a timing out route or a bang eight, right on time. I don't like the trajectory of the NFL's passing game personally.
I agree.
I don't like watching these bubble screens, these RPOs. I collect the vomit bags on airplanes so I can throw up into them when I have to watch this. My idea of beating a blitz is recognizing the blitz, communicating the audible, flashing a hand signal, and seeing a wideout shred that receiver. But a lot of teams' only answer, as you know, is throwing a quick screen. And it is a simplified, muddled down version of what used to be a passing game. But I think you guys would admit the less we put the pads on these linemen, the less we practice, the less we meet, the less we can do. And I think coaches are having to adapt to these situations.
Okay, quarterback wise right now, for me, if I'm throwing on a game, I've got Josh Allen, who must see TV for me every week. Baker Mayfield is in that category for me too. A guy like Matthew Stafford. Do you have one or two guys you got to watch every week?
I love what Mayfield's doing here, Ryan. I mean, he's right here in Tampa. I went to see him play the 49ers. He deserves a lot of credit. I love Jared Goff. I love the way the Lions play offense. They do a lot at the line of scrimmage. They do a lot before the ball is snapped. I'm really interested in what I call RCE. Recognition, that leads to communication, which leads us to high levels of execution. I love seeing quarterbacks that are in charge of recognizing the blitz, seeing the coverage, getting their teams in good play selection. But I love watching Goff. I like watching Joe Burrow. I personally felt it was his best year of all the quarterbacks. I voted for him as the MVP because I thought he carried his team week in and week out. But I think we're on the same page in terms of who we like.
So Ben Johnson, you love that offense. He's now moving on. So you as a play caller and becoming a head coach, I look at somebody like Liam Cohen, who hasn't really been calling plays for that long, and all of a sudden he takes on all these other responsibilities, and he still has to be the play caller during the game. How difficult is that? And do you have some advice for those guys that are doing this for the first time?
I was hired as a young offensive coordinator when I left Philadelphia to go with the Raiders. And Al Davis hired me because he wanted me to call the plays. I think because he wanted to know who he should yell at after the game. But I think Ben Johnson is getting this job because of the system of football that they ran in Detroit. And I think he's going to hire a good defensive staff. I think he's going to delegate that side of the ball personally. And he's got to call the plays. He's got to execute his vision. And it's not going to be easy because I don't think he brought a lot of guys with him from Detroit. So he's going to have to teach his coaches so they can teach the players, but they do have some dynamic players. I'd like to be calling plays with those guys. That's a pretty good group.
Yeah, there's no doubt. You talk about that group, Coach, and I really like, you go to a place and you say, all right, what's this coordinator going to do as a head coach? Now he's the head coach. What is really the mentality that's important to him for this football team? Is it just X's and O's? Is there other things that are going to be involved in who we're going to be as a football team? That's what you hope. I kind of love Chicago Bears so far, what they've done in the sense of maybe Joe Thuney's not going to play a lot longer, but to trade for a Joe Thuney at left guard, to trade for a Jonah Jackson in L.A., who unfortunately is just in a situation where they couldn't had too many bodies to figure out who could play, but can still play at a high level. He was with Ben Johnson in Detroit, so he knows him well. And then now here they are in free agency. They've signed the center out of Atlanta, Drew Dahlman. It's like, hey, your first few moves as the head coach of the Chicago Bears, let's go get some big fellas up front, because we can talk about teaching this quarterback to play faster and quicker and all these type things they want to say. Hey, you know what? Give him time to have a chance to catch the football and process a little bit. And that starts with that interior three guys and building that wall that's going to be existing in front of him.
Well, you ain't kidding. You just got me fired up. I mean, I grew up in South Bend, Indiana. My dad was a running back coach for Notre Dame. So I would go see the Chicago Bears when I was a kid. And it's cold up there, man. It's cold. When it gets to be Halloween, it's cold and real cold. And they used to have a guy named Walter Payton. And when they got Van Horn and Tom Thayer and Bortz, and they started rocking people with Walter Payton, it was amazing how Jim McMahon was able to throw the ball over people's head. I think the Bears got to get back to being the Bears, kicking your ass up front physically with a good defense and a good offensive line and trying to control the game a little bit with your running game. Hopefully, Ben Johnson is able to duplicate what he did in Detroit, because nobody really talks about that running game. I mean, those two running backs both were phenomenal, and they had different types of runs, a lot of different schemes, which really helped them both.
Give us a glimpse into your life right now, a day in the life of Coach Jon Gruden. What's the coffee routine in the morning, if there is one? What's the workout regimen? I know you're grinding over tape, and you said you're in Tampa right now, correct?
Yeah, I've got an office here. You guys are always welcome at the Fired Football Coaches Association. I took a job with Barstool. I'm having a blast. I watch tape most of the day. I'm up at 4:30 every day. I got 2 cups of coffee. I got my AC/DC music rocking, maybe a little Nazareth, a little old Van Halen. And I'm getting ready for these young quarterbacks. We already had Will Howard in here from Ohio State. What a great job he did. We've got Riley Leonard from Notre Dame coming shortly, and we've got 5 or 6 others coming down the pipe here in March. So I try to go through all their tape, make some cut-ups of things that I love, maybe some things that were really cool that they did, they can teach us. I want to hear them communicate, maybe help them with a couple things I think they can work on, and try to introduce them to an NFL snap count, some different concepts, some things I know they're going to be asked to do. And I'm really enjoying myself. I'm undefeated. I don't have to deal with all you players.
Scoreboard, baby.
All you're crying about your contracts, free agency. I don't have to argue with the GM and the owner. I'm having a nice, good old time.
Yeah, I enjoy that. Anytime we're getting to do this and there's no scoreboard.
Yeah.
When you used to do that for ESPN, you did the QB camp deal. Was there ever a dude that you got done with and he walked out of there and you thought, gosh, he's got no chance, that you were wrong on?
Well, that's a good question. I've been wrong quite a bit. I can't say that a guy I thought was going to be bad was good, but I happen to think a lot of these guys, and I think you can relate to this, and I'm not trying to be egotistical at all, but I fall in love with a lot of these guys. And I'm convinced if I coached them, I could help these guys be really good. That's how sick I am. I mean, we led the NFL in offense with Ty Detmer, who was a backup Green Bay didn't want. Nobody wanted Rich Gannon. He comes to the Raiders. He kicks everybody's ass. We won a Super Bowl with Brad Johnson, the Bull. And I just think this, if you were there with us in Green Bay when we traded for Brett Favre, nobody really thought Brett Favre was worth a first-round pick. And Mike Holmgren told Mariucci and Andy Reid and myself, we're going to make this guy successful. And when he's successful, we'll have jobs. If he's not successful, we'll be gone anyway. But my point to you guys is, I think a lot of these teams nowadays change offensive coordinators like they change shirts. It's a new system. There's no off season. We don't want to have a preseason anymore. We don't want to have any developmental time for these young guys. You were a hell of a young player at Harvard. You had to keep grinding. You had to keep searching and clawing just to get a shot. And I don't know that you aren't any different than a lot of these young guys that are in the NIL transfer portal, 4 different schools. This is a tough evaluation. And I don't know how many guys really truly relish the daily development of the quarterback like they did years ago.
There's no doubt about it, Coach. I mean, you really look at this league, it's that has drastically changed. I can look from when I got in the league in 06 to when I left in 21, what it meant to work and the commitment to, like, hey, over time, consistency over time is really our truest measure of performance. Like, how are you going to show up every single day with a sense of urgency to chase being great? You know, I tell guys this, my last 10 years in the league, Melissa and I was fortunate enough to play long enough to have a second home. We had a home in Colorado up in the mountains, and I would hike in the summers. And guys are like, man, what the heck are you doing? You're off for the summer. Why are you climbing mountains with a backpack? And I always told them at my age, I'm 36, 37, 38, 39, 40 my last few years. I used to say, I need to walk my ass up this mountain and get up here to talk and huff and puff, because that's what an NFL football season feels like. Yeah. If you don't want to commit to every step after the other one, ain't getting any easier. It's only getting tougher, and it's a long journey up the top of this mountain. It was a way to remind myself what I was signing up for. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes I think these guys, it's like, you know, we don't have the patience to let guys go through that journey a little bit. They're going to want to stop sometimes. They're going to put their hands on their knees. They're going to need a break. They're going to need somebody to love on them along the line. It's like we cut the ties before they ever get a chance to have any of that commitment around them. We had Kevin O'Connell on last week. He was famous this season earlier in the year. He said, franchises fail these young quarterbacks long before these young quarterbacks fail franchises. And I think that's the most interesting part to me is it's the patience thing that we're seeing, either ripping the quarterback out of the offense or getting the coach out of there. All of those things don't marry up with. It's about the marriage and consistency over time that's going to bring us success no matter what it is.
That's right. And when you look at the teams that win, there's usually continuity between the coach and the quarterback. I went to Kansas City. I spent a week with the Chiefs last year in training camp. Andy Reid invited me. I had to stay in the dorm, but I got to go into meetings and I got to witness the collaboration between the two of these guys. And it's off the charts compared to some of these other teams where you got a new OC, you got a head coach that's not involved with the offense. And then you look at the poor young backup quarterbacks. I don't know how they see things to start with. So it's a very difficult vibe right now that I'm getting. We've had a lot of quarterbacks from college and the NFL come through here in the last couple of weeks, and we got a bunch more coming. But you're always welcome. I'd love to get Fitz down here and see his perspective. Because they say he's got one of those Ivy League, what is that? I don't know if you got a degree from there. Or
I did, yes.
Harvard University.
He's going to bring it up, Coach. Don't worry. He only brings up Harvard every other 10 minutes of the episode.
Dude, I would love to come, let's see, Arizona to Tampa, down there, I guess. But I spent a few years in Tampa, and boy, we love that community. Mm-hmm. We lived right off of West Shore and right on the water. I had my
They love you down here, man. They love you.
Dude, I'm telling you, we miss
magic,
it,
baby.
We miss it so much. We made the decision to sell that house just because when we were in Arizona, we weren't going to get there much. But aside from the playing and, the great guys like Mike Evans and being involved on that team, I used to take my pedal kayak off my dock at 10 p.m. and just go fish all those dock lights and catch 30 snook at night and come back in at 2 a.m. under the stars, not a worry in the world other than like a manatee scaring the crap out of me. But it was so much fun. I miss Tampa every single day. I think it's one of the more underrated cities in the U.S.
It really is. We've got it going. I think the Buccaneers, it's an interesting team. Jason Light, the GM, has done a great job. They've got Chris Godwin coming off an injury, and much like Cincinnati, I know they like to keep him and Evans together. They just re-signed Levante David, but I really like this team. They've got a heck of an offensive line. Tristan Wirfs and Gedeke at right tackle, probably as good as there is in the league. This is a good team down here in Tampa.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Kevin Carberry's done a great job with that group. That's a talented group. I thought Kevin did an awesome job coming in first year, and you can tell that they have a real bond. We obviously on Thursday Night Football had them, and so you can tell that group's special. And Tristan's probably one of my favorites. If I was going to make a list of left tackles out there right now, man, I enjoy watching this guy play. He is a big, strong sucker. He's going to be a really good football player for a long time. That is for sure.
Hey, I need to connect you with Josh Grizzard, who just got named the OC there.
Oh, that's right.
He's a Yale guy. Which was that's not nice for me. I didn't enjoy working with him because of that. But young guy, really smart dude that's been in a few different systems. And I think he could learn a lot from you and you'd help him out a lot. So I would like to hopefully bridge that gap for you guys. And then secondly, do you know what Ty Detmer's doing now?
He's coaching. We had Vontaze Burfict in here a couple weeks ago. And Burfict wants to get in coaching. So we brought in Burfict. We filmed some stuff.
Smart sucker.
And Vontaze is working for Ty Detmer out in Arizona somewhere.
Wait, coaching football. So my son, the last 2 years, played against Ty Detmer. I was like, you want to talk about a well-coached football team. I did not know that Vontaze Burfict was out here. I guess he went to Arizona State, so that makes sense. But Whit's got a few stories about him, I'm sure. But how cool is that for you to see guys that you were around, that you coached, or that you coached under you, and to see them have the success, whether on the high school level or just paying it forward, but some guys that have been in the NFL and had some huge success because of you as well.
Well, that's great. And I came off a really good tree. I was a 49er tree with Bill Walsh and Mike Holmgren, and we had a lot of great coaches there. Great system. I still have the cut-ups. I still look at some of the old drawings. But, when you're around good people, usually good things happen. You inherit some knowledge. You inherit a lot of information that you can sometimes pass on to other people. And fortunately, we had some success. And when you have success, as you guys know, people come and take away your coaches or take away your players. And that's something that you hate to see, but it's something that really makes you feel pretty good deep down.
We had McVay on here 2 weeks ago.
We had McVay. He shared a lot of that. They had a calm off season. They only lost like 6 guys this year, so it was a low year this year for turnover. But you talk about a guy, Coach, you obviously know well. You gave him his first job in the league, his first opportunity. Last week we had to give some love to your brother because Jay texts me every time we have a Rams or Vikings game, and he's like, "Hey, when are you going to say that I hired Kevin O'Connell and Sean McVay and give me some credit?" I'm like, all right. So as soon as Kevin came on the podcast last week, I was like, let's give Jay some credit because he's going to keep texting me if I don't freaking make sure that we say Jay Gruden hired the both of you. But really, we kind of got to give Sean's credit to you, actually. We got to pass it back down to Big Bro.
Well, I don't know. I had a lot of good quality control guys. I had McVay and Jay, and I had Kyle Shanahan. We had Raheem Morris. We had a lot of good quality control guys, but those guys were special. They love football. They're great communicators, and now I'm enjoying them sweating on the sidelines, because they got to win. It's a pressure job, man. These owners, they don't have any patience. And the media, guys like you and Richard Sherman, and I see you guys are just shredding these poor coaches. You're just on their ass criticizing.
We learned from you.
We learned
from you, man.
Hey, here's the best part of the gig, John. You know this well. We got all the answers and zero accountability, baby. It's all the answers and zero accountability. It's beautiful.
I was hoping that you guys would go up in the booth with Al Michaels because he's one of my favorite guys of all time. I imitate him a lot, when I'm out there. And Herb Street, there must be 2 Herb Streets. What is he like? Got a Siamese twin or something?
I don't know how it's possible.
Why don't you guys go up there and help him out? The poor guy probably needs to get some rest.
He needs a nap, that's for sure.
Coach, probably the coolest thing about our Thursday night gig, though, is every Thursday night, no matter if we're East Coast or West Coast, unless it's L.A., I guess, Al is having a cocktail and hanging out after the game. It doesn't matter how late it is. We're going to just do a little debrief. We're going to enjoy each other. And for us, it's one of the coolest moments every single week for us to be able to spend some time with such a legend. But do you miss coaching? Is that something that you want to get back into at some point? You see yourself being a head coach again? Oh,
I miss it. I'm scratching that itch, though, right here. I've had more people come in here the last few weeks than probably any coach in the league. College guys, NFL guys. So I'm studying every day, scratching that itch. I would like one more chance to do it because I thought we had that team on the right trajectory. We were 3-0. We beat 3 straight playoff teams, and I thought we had a good young team. And it really crushes me to see how everybody went different directions real fast. So deep down, I'm kind of, hoping someday I get a chance, but I'm definitely not counting on anything. So I've reinvented myself, man.
You've done it beautifully. That is for sure. I saw you're a Migos fan now, so that's right up Fitzpatrick's alley as well. Fitzmagic's a big Migos guy.
Yeah, so, big AC/DC and Migos guy. He's got some range.
Yeah,
but Coach, you talk about the emotions of it and seeing guys go the other way. It's something similar going on right now with the Los Angeles Rams and Cooper Kupp. Heading out after the commit. Really the contributions he's had have been unbelievable. Ram and. Now they're parting ways. As you look back on your time being a head coach and we say those kind of things, people get excited about the moves. Hey, you signed so-and-so. But I think a lot of times we get lost in the shuffle is maybe the guys that you're like, man, crap, we had to move on from this guy. And maybe we made this decision or that one that it was tough and it's a hard decision. And we don't realize how much emotion goes into these type things. Is there some free agency redos that you can think of? Like, man, I wish I'd have made a different choice here, or a guy that you think of in that situation?
I'm sure there is. I mean, a lot of it, I don't want to blame anybody or come on some show like, we screwed this up. I remember the Khalil Mack thing. I came out of basically the booth to go coach the Raiders. And I don't want to walk into Oakland without my best players. I didn't realize his contract was expired and he was an unrestricted free agent. And it was very difficult to get him re-signed, very difficult. But that was a tough pill to swallow when you walk in the building and you got a 26-year-old pass rusher that you never even get a chance to talk to. That was tough. But there's a number of number of guys. I remember losing Nelson Aguilar, believe it or not. He comes over from Philadelphia, has a real nice year for us, has about 900 yards and 18 yards a catch. And he played for the minimum for us, a 1-year contract. And the Patriots gave him $12 million. And I remember Aguilar calling me saying, just give me 7 or 8. I'm like, we don't have it. We don't have it. We have a budget. And sometimes you just can't rob Peter to pay Paul every time. But there's a lot of players I fell in love with, man. I didn't want to lose them. And I would be pissed off at the general manager for weeks. I'd be walking around in a state of rage, you know. But it's just,
you better draft well. This better be a good draft.
Business. That's why, you know what, guys, when I worked for the 49ers back in the day, Eddie DeBartolo was the owner. And it was before free agency. There was no free agency. We had the best player. Steve Young was our backup quarterback. We had 2 Hall of Famers. Our nose tackles were Michael Carter, Jim Burt, and Fred Smerlas. We only played 1 nose tackle at a time, you know, but we had the greatest team ever. And now those days are over. So you've got to really be careful. You got to hit your draft picks. Some of the mid to late rounders in particular are really important in this draft.
How big was that keeping guys like Max Crosby happy? He just signed that big deal as a pillar of your program. And how much does he mean to that team?
Yeah, I think he's shit. When you watch a guy's effort,
rare,
and when you watch his playing percentage, that's the one thing people don't realize. A lot of these defensive linemen nowadays play 57% of the snaps, 66% of the snaps. And that's not being disrespectful. That's a fact. Max Crosby plays every snap. He played every snap for 9 straight weeks. And he plays it at supreme effort. He's like Robert Mathis was of the Indianapolis Colts. He's not getting the credit he really deserves. But as you know, Whit, this guy's a pain in the ass, man, because when you are a little bit tired from walking up that mountain.
I'm sitting right here because guys like him.
But you better have a plan for him. You better have a plan for him. You better chip him. You better throw it quick, move the pocket, keep him off balance, run the ball at him. You got to do some things or he'll ruin the game. And now that they get Christian Wilkins back, Malcolm Kuntz is another young pass rusher who missed last season. He's a hell of a young player. I like the Raiders up front, and I like the fact that Pete Carroll's in charge with Geno Smith. I think they're on the right path right now.
Yeah, I love that, John. You know, I used to, Sean and I talk about all the time, I'd give him one of these. So every time the great rushers would come off the field, I'd look over on the sideline and I'd go, hey, I'd give Sean one of these, like, hey, do not let these guys substitute once. Like, let's just roll this thing. Yeah. Play after play, no huddle, like on the ball, let's go. Because if you're gonna take Nick Bosa off the field, I want every shot play we got. Let's run it, take a bomb. Let's go.
That's what we did, man. As soon as Dwight Freeney came out of the game, I said, somebody kicked me in the balls. Let me know when he's out of the game.
Yes, 100%.
Those guys can ruin the game, as you know.
Yesterday, I saw Sauce Gardner complaining about cornerbacks not getting paid and why are these pass rushers getting paid, basically. But when you've got a game plan, a whole game plan of, okay, where is he on every single play and where are we running and when are we throwing and how are we chipping, those guys in Max Crosby's at the top of the list, along with Myles Garrett, who just signed that big deal, obviously, of the game wreckers or the guys that as a quarterback, you know, we have to know where they are more than I got to know where those DBs are on the outside.
And Coach just said it, Dwight Freeney. I mean, I've said this forever. People don't realize in that era there that when he was playing at his elite level, to me, he was one of the few guys, like the entire game plan for the game was affected by the fact that he was playing in the game. So, like, if he's on the field, we're never calling a play where we don't have some kind of conscious effort of Dwight Freeney's on this football field. He was the first guy really in my young time of my career that was like, when you went into the game, we're going to know where this guy's at every snap. Every single play is going to be dictated off of him being on the football field and whether or not we can get it off. Because it's not just whether he'd wreck the play. You know, this coach is a play caller. He makes me waste a lot of freaking good plays because I call it and he's in the game and he destroys the play and we can't get it back off the sheet.
No, you're exactly right. And not only do they get sacks and they force, bad plays, they cause penalties, holding calls, false starts. They really do get in your head. If you're not a big time player like you were with, some of these young tackles can really get frustrated. And when you get frustrated early, it can be a long day. But I do like teams that have a fourth quarter pass rush. I think that's championship football. I look at the Chiefs with Chris Jones and, their ability to get after the quarterback. Philadelphia had it this year. The Chiefs couldn't handle them when they got that lead. We had that in Tampa with Sapp and Simeon Rice and Spires. You have got to have a fourth quarter pass rush to dominate and win a championship. And I think that'll be a big part of this draft and free agency. Everybody's looking for those guys who can get the quarterback.
Yeah, big D-line draft too. A lot of talented players. So this will be one that you can see a lot of teams probably try and catch some guys in that. And you look at this offseason right now, Coach, is there a team that you kind of are circling in either conference that you're like, man, I'm kind of interested to see the moves they make, because I think they're right there on the doorstep of becoming one of those teams that's going to be competing for a championship?
I'll start right here in Tampa. I think Tampa Bay's already proven they can win the South. I think they can be a Super Bowl contender. And I know Todd Bowles is a pain in the ass to go against. They do a great job with multiple fronts and blitzes and coverages.
They do.
They got to get a rusher or two. And I think they're going to go heavy in free agency, get a marquee player at corner or at a pass rush position, and then double up in the draft. I think if they can get a few defensive players, I think Tampa Bay could be really good. And I'm anxious to see what the Chargers do. They got to get some receivers. They've got to get Justin Herbert some guys. I watched that Houston playoff game again the other day. It was painful. And they've got to replace Khalil Mack and Bosa. So those are two teams I think are very interesting because the Chargers do have some offensive linemen. They do have some pretty good players in that nucleus. But those are two teams I'm anxious to look at.
What about quarterback qualities? You've done, long, extensive career of looking at these guys in college. What are two of the big qualities you're always looking for in a quarterback that maybe is a little bit different? Now it's analytics and it's completion percentage, but things that you're looking for on tape that you say, I'm more interested and want to dig deeper on this guy.
Well, if I was coaching you, if I got you to come out of that booth, I would talk to you about, I would love having you because of the word quickness. I think you got to have three kinds of quickness. And I think it starts with mental quickness. You got to be able to recognize that defense and communicate at a high level. But you better be able to flash a man-to-man signal over here, or a hand signal over here to the X. You've got to have a quick mind.
People don't do it anymore, Coach. They don't do it anymore.
But I did it, and that's what I'm going to do when I come back, damn it.
I agree.
We're going to have a quick-minded quarterback, and then you got to have a quick arm. You got to have a quick arm. You've got to be able to get rid of that ball, not only on these RPO bubble screens and quick screens, but you got to be able to get it out of your hand, get it up and out. And I think you got to work on your body quickness, get knocked off the spot, keep that ball in a throwing position, make some awkward deliveries, but working on mental quickness, arm quickness, body quickness every single day. I think it starts right there. And I'm looking for a guy that freaking loves it, man. A guy that really can't wait to come in there, a guy that's got a big set of what, a guy that really performs at crunch time. I like to watch all these guys in the fourth quarter when the game is tied or they're behind. Forget about all the other film. Just bring me that tape so I can see these guys when the shit is on the line. I love that. And I think it starts there. And obviously you got to have all the ability and all the measurables and all that stuff. But to be a great quarterback, you got to have quickness and you got to have guts.
I was just going to say, I'll send you some footage of 2004 Harvard Brown. Let me know what you think in that fourth quarter, that comeback. But we can, there's another game we can talk about.
I was about to say, Coach, I want to take you back. December 26th, 2020, day after Christmas. Your Raiders are in the Death Star hosting the Miami Dolphins. Coach Flores has decided to bench Tua, some old crusty vet named Ryan Fitzpatrick comes off the bench. Come on, Coach. He goes 9 of 12, 182 yards, had a 137 pass rating.
They threw a Hail Mary, and they caught it, and we face masked them. It was like a double whammy.
It's an epic picture.
I've been shredded by Peyton Manning and Ryan Fitzpatrick, and my wife locked me out of the house both nights.
You're still standing by that call, Coach?
Picture.
Josh Jacobs letting them go down at the 1 yard line.
If you want to talk to the analytical people, which I don't, that was analytical thing to do. Yeah. According to the statistical data that was presented to me. But I never want to see Josh Jacobs take a knee, but
Yeah.
that was a miraculous act of God. You guys winning that game.
It was just so insane. And it was during COVID too, which was like so weird with nobody in the stands. And I had hit Gesicki down the pipe earlier in the game. And so it was so funny on the sideline. We set it up, figured it was going to be cover two. The cloud corner on the left, I don't know what the hell he was doing. I think he was a young guy, but I just stared down Mike down the middle, knowing that no matter where the corner was, I was going to throw, basically a blind shot to Mac Hollins down the left sideline. Arden Key grabs my face mask. Somehow the ball still gets completed. I think the face mask helped because it put a little less juice on the ball. The safety wasn't allowed to get over there.
Play ever, man.
It was so insane.
Thanks for bringing that up. I'm glad to be on your podcast.
Have you showed Coach what you were doing to prepare for that game, Fitz? Coach, do you have your phone with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Check your phone out. I sent you a couple. If you remember, Coach, I know you loved the COVID times.
Yeah.
So if you remember the COVID times, Ryan was a big prankster. So if you remember when you would have somebody come down with COVID, you would. So you would have the league have to review the videos. So this idiot would go and make videos in front of the camera so Goodell and those people would have to watch his videos.
I always had my mask
when they
on.
would have somebody come down with COVID.
I got COVID after that game. Coach Olson and I had a conversation before the game. He had just had COVID, I think the week before, or 2 weeks before. And so if you remember, I think you guys were eliminated after that game. We still had a chance to make the playoffs and we're going to play the Bills. And again, I had been benched that year. So I was coming in spot duty. Who knew it was going to happen the next week if I would have played or not? But I get COVID on that Monday or Tuesday. And the whole time I'm thinking it was Ole, thinking, God damn it. Ole, I talked to you before the game, but they had to review all the film. And me, an old crusty guy that had been benched, that's still helping the team, but I got a lot of time on my hands now. Those are the kind of things I was doing in the building. And that was my preparation for your game, was a couple of those reps.
Well, preparation pays off, Fitz. That's a good look on you too. You filled that outfit out nice.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, what a wild time that was. I mean, goodness gracious. Those were some interesting days in the locker rooms during the COVID times. And you just try to find ways to entertain yourself on the Zooms and everything else. I mean, I can remember all the antics guys would do in the middle of a team meeting. You see guys like you're looking around to each video to kind of find a guy, what he's doing, what he's up to. Those were wild times.
Richie Incognito was one of my favorite linemen I've ever been around. And
awesome.
We had our Zoom meetings, and we took a lot of pride in trying to have a practice off of the Zoom video that I put together. The quarterbacks had a script. They were calling plays. It was real serious. And I was really determined to be better than all the other teams with our COVID offseason program. Now, we start the day with a team meeting, and you have all these little boxes. You can see all your players, and they're all sitting there in their T-shirts or whatever. And I don't see anybody in Richie Incognito's box. So I'm like, that son of a bitch, where is he? Where is Incognito? I'm texting the guys. Pretty soon he gets on, and he's not dressed at all. He's having a good old time, He wanted us to know this was not his cup of tea, these COVID Zoom meetings. Now it's funny, after all those Zoom meetings, I think a lot of people think that football teams can function by just having Zoom meetings. We don't need to practice. We don't need to go out there and go out on the field. Let's just have a Zoom meeting, Well, you can't pick up a TE stunt with a Zoom meeting. You got to go outside and do it. But we did get a lot done. But as you guys know, those were some weird times.
I got drafted with Richie Incognito to St. Louis. The first thing he did, he bought, I think it was a BMW. He bought a car and put 27 TVs in it.
27.
And he put one in the gas cap. So you'd open the gas cap to fill up the car, and there was a TV screen on the inside of the gas cap. Gucci line seats, Gucci. It was just like, Richie, what the hell are you doing, dude? And then I got to play with him again.
I can't even say that's a surprise. He was out of football. He was suspended, and he came out to the Raiders, and we worked him out. And Whit, what kind of athlete Incognito is.
Unbelievable.
So Tom Cable, our offensive line coach, puts these cones around the field, and he tells Richie, okay, do a karaoke around the first 10, do a back pedal, do a hopping thing, another 10 yards, and then come back pedal and sprint through the line. So that's how the drill starts. And Incognito, he hops like an elk. He backpedals like a DB. He does a karaoke like a dancer. And 35 seconds into the workout, Cable goes, I've seen enough. Let's sign this guy.
Obviously, there's a lot of other stuff around his career, but man, as a football player, he was always a great dude to me. And every time I've ever been around Rich, man, love that dude. And as a football player, he was freaking phenomenal. I thought
if I could have had him playing next to you on that left side, that would have been.
Oh, buddy.
Because, and Fitz, you've seen this all the years you've played. I think the real good offensive coaches coach the help system better than others. I'm talking about that uncovered lineman, nobody to block. Pow! He plants a seed, man. You're the running back. You get a chip. The tight end gets a nudge. But people are actively looking to help each other in pass protection, sending the center toward Aaron Donald. Don't send them away from Aaron Donald. There are a lot of teams that really don't have a clue, to me, sometimes with their plan. And some of these teams are clearly ahead. But when you have some guys that are nasty and athletic and take great pride in protecting the quarterback, it's a fun group to be around. And we had, Rodney Hudson and Gabe Jackson and Incognito. We brought in Trent Brown. We were on the right path. Colton Miller was a hell of a young player for us. But I try to find the offensive lines, the Philadelphia Eagles. I absolutely love Jeff Stoutland. I don't know about you, Whit, but the Eagles will smoke you, man. They will knock your face off, and they're fun to watch.
They are. I keep saying them with Saquon just doesn't feel fair. I don't even know how that happens together, but those two being together just doesn't seem right for the rest of the league. Because as long as that exists, you know what? They're going to be a real tough team to beat just because of that ability in itself, and then much less all the talent they got everywhere else. But I said this before. If you want to repeat that offensive line, this league's a copycat league. We all want to copycat what the other teams do. You need 2 second-rounders who've watched Jason Kelsey play for a couple years. You need a right tackle who's all-world, who plays for 10-plus years. You need a right guard who's a bust as a top 15 pick as a tackle, can play a position he's never played before in his life. And then you see go find you an Australian rugby player, and you can just copycat the Eagles all day long. It's real simple. Jump out there, get it done. I mean, what a freaking group that is. They are special, man, and they're going to be a problem for years to come.
And what's to say about Jeff Stoutland, though? I mean, you just said it. I mean, get Mekhi Becton and make him a right guard. He's a left tackle. Make him a right guard. And when you watch him play against your Rams, they smoked those guys, man, with the running game. I mean, they had about 8 runs of 50 yards or more against the Rams in the 2 games they played. And no disrespect to Saquon, but I could have hit a couple of those holes.
Hey, listen, Coach, I'm sitting in there. I went with the Rams to the game. I'm sitting in the owner's suite, and, it's one of those where as a lineman, I'm very conflicted. I'm obviously rooting for the Rams, but, man, every time watching one of those runs get out, I just, oh, man, this is awesome. Yeah, this is football right here. This is what I love, but I also hate it at the same time. Yeah. They were a fun group to watch.
Sure were.
What you were just talking about and the help aspect of it, as you watch quarterback play, and we already talked about, you don't love the direction that offenses are going. I think that's part of the problem too. When you, like Tom Brady, New England, we talked about this with Kevin O'Connell last week. He was in charge of everything. He needed to know on a run play where the mic point was, why we were going there, pass plays, obviously understanding every part of it. And towards the tail end of my career, as I got to different places, they started taking some of that away from quarterbacks because they wanted to free your mind, because they wanted everything to be simple for you pre-snap. And I just told them, I can't do that. I need to be in control. I'm the one that needs – how am I supposed to go and run a pass play if I don't know where the line is sliding to, if I don't know where my issues are? Don't take it away from me, because it's not the simplicity of it. It's the full understanding of what's going on. And that's kind of the way a lot of these offenses are being taught now, is let's make it really easy on the quarterback pre-snap so he can just play ball. And I do think that's the wrong direction.
Yeah, that kind of gets me in a state of rage. You know, I don't buy into that. You know, someone come and tell your quarterback, we're going to keep it simple. No, we're not going to overload you. There's a lot of people that think, Gruden, he does way too much. Hey, yeah, our game plans were thick. We had everything for everybody. We had 13 personnel, 12, 21, 22, no backs, no huddle. I wanted a lot. I wanted to stimulate the players. I wanted everybody to walk in there on Wednesday and go, man, I got a chance to be a big part of this game. I didn't want to go in there with 12 pass plays and 5 runs and clap my hands with my snap count. You know, I just think we're underestimating.
Let's get in trips and just snap it.
Yeah, what these quarterbacks can do.
Speaking of that, Coach, you know, I know you have we've had some times, you know, I can still go back to the Super Bowl the Ravens won in New Orleans, where I got to have lunch with you and Peyton and just listen to y'all talk about coaches and football and everything else. I mean, you pay attention to freaking everything. So if you had a couple guys out there just that, you know, the world of media and football probably doesn't know, but if there's a couple coaches out there, we don't want to give any away, but you're going to hire when you get that next job. But is there a couple guys out there we don't know about, or maybe, you know, the world doesn't know about? They're going to be heck of football coaches that you've kind of been following?
Well, I think the guy that Detroit just hired as the OC, John Morton, is a stud. He went to Detroit with Ben Johnson a couple years ago when we all got fired with the Raiders, and he helped implement a lot of our system. I see a lot of the same formations and plays. I think Johnny Morton is going to do an unbelievable job with the Detroit Lions. Not to say he's got an easy job, because Ben Johnson was excellent, but that's one guy. You mentioned a guy, Carberry. If I was going to come back and coach, I was going to hire him as my line coach, because I spent a lot of time up at New Orleans, and he was helping the other offensive line coach. He really wasn't the full-time guy, but when I watched him on the field, I said, damn, this guy really is into Coach. Then I'd see him in there at night when everybody's leaving. He's making cut-ups. He's just one of these guys that, you know, he's just got the it factor. He's a teacher. When I went up to the Kansas City Chiefs, I just happened to see a great coaching staff. And Andy Reid has done a hell of a job developing that crowd. They've had a lot of continuity with Spags there and Dave Tobe. Andy Heck is a hell of a coach. I love Joe Cullen, their D-line coach. I'd probably go in there with a briefcase full of money and get Joe Cullen to help me out with my defense.
You'd love Carberry, Coach. I was talking to Tristan Wirfs in the whole line before the Tampa game. I'm just like, give me some Carberry stories. I know this guy's a maniac for football. The guy just loves ball. So they're telling me at snack time, you know, in between, you know, you have your meetings, kind of your offensive meetings, and then have that little break and you're waiting for the team meeting. They say we're sitting there eating our snacks the night before the game, and you know, Carberry's just pacing around the room, and we know what it is. He knows this isn't technically meeting time, but he kind of wants to ask if we'll come back in the room and watch just a couple more clips with him. And so they said he'll just circle the team meal room, and then he gets a little closer, and finally just be like, Coach Carbs, do you want to meet with us? Yeah, if you guys don't mind, man, I'd love to just get a couple minutes and show you a couple clips real quick. They're like, it's just a weekly thing. We're like, hey, at this point, Coach, just say you want to meet with us, because you don't have to keep circling us like a buzzard. But you would love him, man. He is a maniac for football. That is for sure.
Yeah, you know, guys that have a library of tape, because I think players learn differently. Some guys need to see it on the board. Some guys need to have a walkthrough. Some guys have to see it on tape. And I think the great coaches have great libraries. So when you come down here to the FFCA, you're going to see me install a play that was Joe Montana in 1989. Then you'll see Brett Favre in 1989, Drew Brees in 2009, and you'll see Joe Burrow throw it yesterday. So you see a concept that's been effective for 40 years, and now you're a young quarterback. I say, is there any freaking questions? Do you not think this is a good play? You know, you got to sell, but you got to sell these things, whether it's an offensive lineman, whether it's a quarterback. You got to sell your system, man. You got to get these guys excited. And as you know, there's a million different things that can happen. They could jump into a jam front, double A's. They could all out blitz you. They could bring a corner blitz. And if you don't have a team that's really interested in preparing, it's going to be a shit show. And, that's why I love the way you guys played the game. That's why I had to be on this podcast, because you guys are what the game is supposed to be all about.
I love that, Coach. I always say that, like, the best coaches to me, it doesn't matter the way we get there. If it's tape, if it's the board, if it's out at the grass on a walkthrough, whatever it is, you can find a way to get only the belief and the vision of a play from the grass, because that's where I've got to commit to it. Is I can see it on a board, I can watch it on film, I can do it in a walkthrough, but when that live snap happens, it's like a golf swing. Once you pull that club back, it better be ingrained that you believe you're going to pull it off and you have a vision for what it's going to look like. And from the grass level, I can see it all happening in front of me. And that's how you get full commitment. I think you're always in search of that, whatever it takes, whatever version there is. Like we always say, there's not one way to do things. And the fastest way I can prove that is we can go watch all 32 left tackles in the NFL. They all get in a stance different. They all move different.
You and Deion Dawkins,
they all move different. But there's some key things they all do right or wrong, and that's what matters, whether they're successful.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for joining us, man.
I appreciate you guys having me.
I'm going to book my plane ticket back to Tampa, baby. I'm going to come and hang out with you for a little bit.
This might be moving back to Tampa.
Come on down here. If you ever bring the kids, go to Busch Gardens, go to the beach for a week. Come and see me, man. You guys got my number now. It'd be great to connect with you. I would love to do a Gruden's QB class show with you, Fitz. You would be freaking awesome.
Come on.
That'd be awesome. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate you joining us. What a dude. I mean, you could tell. I love the moments where he was just teetering on getting into that Chucky face, like really upset. The current state of where quarterback play is going and offenses. But I did find it interesting, asking him, does he have that itch to coach again? He said he's really enjoys what he's doing right now and he's watching a ton of film, but he said he'd like one more chance. Deep down, he's hoping he gets one more chance somewhere. And, in this day and age where you're just searching for offensive coaches and guys that can be effective on that side of the ball, he would obviously be one of the best and brightest. And there's some baggage and things that have to get worked through there. But I think he's obviously well respected in the league for the way that he calls plays. Quickness. Thought that was interesting. I don't know if he took a shot at me, body type and quickness of the body type, or I don't know.
Think you missed a couple of those categories he listed, but you had some. Oh.
Quickness of mind. I do have quickness of mind. My deal was always, let's eliminate. I
didn't hear a compliment about your body.
No, I thought he took a shot at me at my body there, which is fine. And then I love too the importance of the fourth quarter pass rush, which we've seen with Kansas City and Chris Jones, and he alluded to that. And even getting to the Raiders, Christian Wilkins coming back, Max Crosby, and how excited he was not just for the Raiders but for the Bucs this year too. I thought was interesting. So I love sitting down and talking with him every time we get a chance.
Yeah, there's a couple of things for me. Definitely the Raiders and Bucs talk. I mean, the Raiders one's an interesting because I thought that was a good job. If they could get a quarterback in there, people forget Christian Wilkins got hurt last year. Really, the investment they have on that defensive side of the ball. You got Max Crosby. I think you can close a game, you can win a game. So offensively, if they can go score some points, I could see his interest there in that group. Exactly what he said, but also the Joe Burrow MVP vote. I mean, I think that was one. I think Sherm was pretty adamant on why Burrow should be the MVP during the end of our season there with TNF, and so that was a good one. I love that he likes my guy Joe. And then the Bucs Super Bowl contenders, he's adamant about that. I mean, Baker has really brought a lot of confidence to that city and really what they're building. And I think you look at Todd Bowles, exactly what he said. I mean, we've said that a bunch, what a great coach he is, and really that pass rush for them. If they can fix that, it's a huge part of really their opportunity to go be real contenders. To me, they've got to be able to affect the quarterback better. The other one was snook Fitz. That one kind of stuck in my mind. You're night fishing in Tampa. What the hell is a snook? Because the only time I've ever heard snook, being from Louisiana, is like I snook out the house, because that's kind of how we pronounce words. But that's the only snook I've ever heard of.
You've never caught a snook before?
No snook. I mean, I've snook in some places, but
I think they're hermaphrodites. Actually, I think they're hermaphrodites.
Oh, all right.
They've got like this black stripe down the side of them, and it's a little bit raised. I think that's how they hear too. I'm probably making all this stuff up, but very fun fish. Yeah, you can eat snook. For a while there, because of the red tide, you weren't allowed to keep them. There's a very specific slot of how big they have to be in order for you to keep them. So there's a lot of people that I knew that would do the fillet and release. I did not. Okay. I obeyed the law, and if I caught one, I would just let it back out. But they're a fun fight. And that was my favorite type of fish to catch while I was there. So I told you, man, I miss Tampa so much because of that. The access to fishing was so much fun. I fell in love with it.
You brag on Tampa all the time.
Dude,
you brag on Tampa all the time. You make me want to go.
Dude, it's even we were close to the airport. The airport is easy. It's quick. You can get anywhere. All of a sudden, if you want to go south to one of the islands down there, that's really easy too. I know it's a little bit farther away for you and your Cabo trips, but loved it. And then what he didn't mention, an hour and 7 minutes from Disney World too, door to door. So Busch Gardens is great.
No.
I love the Cheetah Run. I love Falcon's Fury. We lived at Busch Gardens doing all those rides. I got some great videos of me making the boys go on Falcon's Fury, which is like a 400-foot free fall and crying in the line. But as a father,
Melissa
you
Whitworth
have to make your kids. Yeah, you got to make your kids uncomfortable sometimes.
100% you do.
Disney is why I took that job. Dirk Cutter called me, and I looked up how far it was from Disney World and thought, you know what? Why not? Let's do it, man. So great, fond memories of Tampa. Obviously, there's a lot of former players that live there, a lot of wrestlers that live there. Gruden still lives there. So super cool. And I would love to hear some comments from our listeners from Tampa, because this is slowly becoming my favorite segment of the week here when we just read these comments. Because we've gotten some good interaction online. But the Kevin O'Connell episode gave us some good ones, man. That was an awesome interview.
He did. You know what? I love the name and the comment. Shaved Wookie 699 says,
that might be my son. I think that's Brady.
Is that Brady? Fitz, I've never been in a tanning bed. Just another way to remind everyone he went to Harvard. Gosh,
okay, shaved Wookie. Okay. You had me until you wrote 699. Like, how old are we, shaved Wookie? I liked, let's see, BM-SI2EI. Not sure what that stands for.
I'm scared we're going to get caught reading something that we're not supposed to.
Yeah, not good. Not that one right there. I'm already nervous about. But he said, God bless the algorithm for bringing me here. Subbed, which that means subscribed, Andrew. That means subscribe. But
cool. You're in the lingo.
Thank you, BM-SI2EI for that one. Appreciate it, man. JJ Hit ES 9855. Question for you guys. This one, I found this fascinating, and I want to ask you this, Whit. Kevin O'Connell's coaching style. How much does that attract and retain players? How much does that resonate with free agents looking for a place to go? And the fact that, like, it says, I want to play for this guy, the culture, the organization. What do you think? Think that matters to guys, or is it just the money?
I would really think this day and age, you see some of these young coaches, the success they've been able to have, the start that Kevin O'Connell's had in Minnesota and what they've been able to do, really, regardless of who's playing a quarterback, they've been able to find ways to be successful. And then you hear the style of who he is and the man he is. I would imagine there's a lot of guys that go, I want that opportunity to be a part of something like that, a culture like that. You see how the NFLPA ratings, when they come out with these teams where Minnesota's rated from a player experience, word of mouth travels amongst the guys. And so when you got a guy who's like him from a leadership style, the human beings right, the buildings right, players enjoy playing there, I would imagine there's guys that tell their agents, if it can somehow work out in Minnesota, I'd love to be there.
Yeah, I would say money is a big factor. No state income tax is a big factor. But that's certainly one of them as well. And just, you said word of mouth. The thing that I always notice on those NFLPA ratings, how do you treat the families? And they are at the top of the list, which becomes a really big thing too for those free agents.
So it's in the wives group too. Their happiness in the wives group means that there's some good things going on. Yes. At Ethan Barker 8728. Do a show with Joe Burrow. That's what I'm talking about, Ethan. I like it. Let's put some heat on Joe. Obviously, I'm a huge fan. I dressed up as him for Halloween. So, Fitz, I feel like we've done nothing but sing his praises. We got to get Joe Burrow on the show.
We got to let the dust settle a little bit. What are they doing in free agency? What's happened with Trey Hendrickson, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins? But, Joe, we need you.
He might not have a lot of happy things to say right this second. So let's wait until he gets some deals done. Let it move away from Halloween. It will be a little awkward that I dressed with him with a wig. So for Halloween. So we don't really want to talk about that much.
We need you, Joe. All right. At Callie Bergman. Fitz and Whit are quickly becoming the best football podcast out there. Love these guys. And clearly the guests love them too. It makes me feel good.
Yeah, of course they do, Fitz, because they're all my contacts, buddy.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so you're 3-0. I guess we're keeping score here. You have
Do you
all
have
3
friends?
guests. I got somebody for next week.
Oh,
Now
I'm excited.
let me tell you though. I gotta. Where's the text message? I sent a text to see if we can get the guest this week. We record on Mondays. The show comes out Tuesdays. Now he's a GM, and he said,
Okay.
I might be a little bit busy on Monday. So I felt like a total douche thinking, okay, this is opening day of legal tampering period and free agency. And I'm asking the GM of a football team to come on a podcast for an hour. Strike one. Luckily, I didn't get to strike two, though, because he will be joining us next week on St. Patrick's Day. We're going to be recording with him, and we're going to get this whole slew of week of news to see what's going on. They've already made some big moves. We're going to get Brandon Beane, GM of the Buffalo Bills, on the podcast next week, which I cannot wait. The biggest things I want to ask him, I mean, they've done a great job of keeping their own, and signing up the guys that they really love, that they want to be pillars of the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen just redid his deal. He did that, 4 years early? So it's like, again, this idea of taking care of your own and doing what's right for the players. There's trust that gets built in an organization with that, but also pressing him on, all right, when are we going to the Super Bowl? When are the Bills going to make it to the Super Bowl because you're there? And what are the moves that need to be done to get you over the hump? But I can't wait to talk to him. Super interesting dude. And then the other thing I want to ask him, and I'm sure you get this too, all the time people are coming up to me and saying, hey, I want to be a GM, or hey, I've got a friend, or hey, my buddy's son wants to be a GM of an NFL football team. Can you help him? What do you want me to do? Like, there's only 32 of those jobs. They're highly coveted, but I would love to hear his path and how he got there, because I think a lot of people, that's the dream job. And, just like us being fortunate enough to play for as long as we did, there's got to be some luck along the way and getting an opportunity to do that and to be a GM of a franchise. But I can't even imagine the stress of that.
Oh gosh, dude. That's being really close, and you're going to get, crushed for the good and the bad, for the bad. And then you're going to get a little hair of the good sometimes when people point it out. But you know what? A ton of stress. That is for sure, because you don't actually get to put your hands on what's happening on the field. You just get to kind of make some decisions of who's out on that field.
We want to thank you all for watching and listening, for sharing your comments and questions on YouTube, on Instagram, on X. Keep them coming. One last special thanks to Jon Gruden. Coach was awesome. And make sure you join us next week. This interview with Brandon Beane it's going to be awesome. Really, appreciate that he's going to spend an hour with us and talk everything Buffalo Bills. We need to get this team to the Super Bowl. People need to see Josh Allen in the Super Bowl. How is it going to happen? But that is for next time on Fitz and Whit. See you next week.
Peace.